Hello, fellow Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name's Sean Waskrug. As always, is Brian Michaels. It's been about a month. Guess what? We told you we're going to be busy with our actual jobs. So, but we could not talk about the two releases that happened this weekend with Wicked and Gladiator 2, two films that were basically on our most anticipated films of the year. But first, we are going to be talking about Wicked. If you guys want to see our review for Gladiator 2, click on the video when it drops. It'll drop probably right after Wicked here. We're here talking about Wicked. This is a movie that, where was this on your most anticipated? Was this like top 3?
It was one of the top ones. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't even on mine. Because I was just like, yeah, it's the Wizard of Oz musical. Woo-wee kind of thing. But you had been eagerly anticipating this film.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I do like musical theater. I've never seen this show in person. I was actually I had tickets to see the show, and then COVID hit and they canceled all the shows, but I didn't get to actually see it in person. But I'd heard the soundtrack a couple times, you know, the songs from it. And I was curious to see the show, but I've never seen the show. But, you know, just liking musicals and liking, well, even before they cast it, and they kept saying, this movie's coming for like the past, I don't know, 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then finally they find out they're making it, and not only are they making it, but John M. Chu is directing it. We both love In the Heights, so you know, yeah. I have my expectations and are skyrocketing for that. They cast it. The cast, I was kind of didn't love it, didn't hate it. I was kind of like, whatever, we'll see what happens. But then the fact that it got pushed back, and then it got pushed back another year, and then they say, oh, now breaking into 2 parts. It's like my anticipation was kind of helped by the fact that it was delayed more. And so it did end up, I was actually just looking right now, it was my number 3 anticipated film of the year.
I was going to say, I thought it was in your top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, John M. Chu? Yeah, John M. Chu. I mean, like I said, In the Heights was our number 1, if not like our number 2 movie of the year when it came out. We both loved that musical. And then Crazy Rich Asians, I think you and I were both like, it was good. It was better than we, you know, had any anticipation for. So knowing that he was at the helm for this definitely helped. And outside of knowing that Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth were,
it's Adele Dazeem.
What's that?
Adele Dazeem, I think is who you meant.
Oh, okay, thank you, Travolta. Outside of knowing that Chenoweth was Galinda and Menzel was Elphaba. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Is that right? Elphaba?
That's right.
I was like, probably just want to say Elfie, because that's like, I was like, oh, thank God they call her Elfie. That'll make it easier for me when I review this. I didn't really know much about Wicked other than Wizard of Oz. And even we talked about it on previous episodes. I was like, when you were talking about, I think, your excitement for this, I was like, why do I care about a movie or a play about the Wicked Witch? We already know where it's going. You're like, oh, well, it's not really like the same story. Kind of like Maleficent. And I was like, okay. I was like, I guess I'll be more open to it. And I, like you as well, was a little, I wouldn't say not excited. But when I heard Ariana Grande was cast as Glinda, or Glinda, however you want to fucking call her name in the movie, I'm not a big Ariana Grande fan. To me, I never watched Victorious. I think you and I are both too old to be watching that. So we only knew her as the singer. And she always just seemed like this annoying voice who really, really wanted to be Mariah Carey. Guys, I know she can sing. Calm down. I'm just saying that's my perception of Ariana Grande, was kind of this annoying, like, blowhard singer. So when I heard that she was cast in this, I was like, well,
it almost at the time, it felt like it seems like it was just casting to bring in her audience, like it was like almost stunt casting,
like Lady Gaga with Joker. Exactly.
In the time since then, though, I saw her on, I think she once or maybe even twice hosted Saturday Night Live, and she actually, you can tell she has great comic timing and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I'm a little more comfortable with it.
Over the time from when she was first announced, and then seeing her and things, because like there were some times where people would like start posting like little snippets of Victorious and like her SNL stuff. I was like, oh, so she can act. And she does, like you said, have good comedic timing. I'm warming myself up to her going into this film. And Cynthia Erivo, I've always been a fan of her since, you know, Bad Times of El Royale. I thought she was fantastic in that. And she's one of those actresses that not that she hasn't done really good things, but I've been waiting for her to have this like Viola Davis like role where she just is like, here the fuck I am. Everyone remember who the hell I am. I'm Cynthia Erivo. And I felt like this was going to be that kind of film from her. And then, of course, casting Jeff Goldblum as Oz, that just seemed like perfect casting to me.
That to me was actually the casting I was most excited about.
Yes.
Like I said, I have not seen the show, but just seeing him as that kind of character, I can just see him in it. It seemed perfect for it, which we'll get into it. But I was a little disappointed by him in this, but we'll get into that later.
But yeah, so going into this, I actually kind of felt better going into it than I did earlier. And I did go and listen to like Adina and Kristen singing Defying Gravity together, because I was like, I want to actually hear what their version is before I go into this, so I have like a good idea of what I was walking into, because I've always heard the song Defying Gravity. I didn't know it was from Wicked. And I've also heard of Popular. Didn't know it was from Wicked. That's always the weird things, is like you hear these songs throughout the history of movies, and then you go back and you watch like an old music. I'm like, that's where that song came from. Okay. And that's kind of how I felt with Defying Gravity and Popular. So with Brian knew of Wicked, and stuff like that. Outside of knowing that it was Wizard of Oz to a point, I had no preconceived notions. I know a lot of people, their main argument, and Brian, you might be one of them, because I have no idea what your thoughts were on the movie, and you have no idea what my thoughts are on the movie, is that a lot of people were mad about that this movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes and it's just part one or act one of the Broadway musical. And I think you even said the Broadway musical is the length of the whole story is literally
240, 245. Yeah.
Is the length of this part one. So, and for me, I know a lot of people are like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, well, I don't have that connection to Wicked. So if they want to stretch the story out, fine. As long as it flows. I mean, like, The Hobbit, they could have done the whole Hobbit in one movie, and they stretched it to 3. Now, I'll admit, I enjoyed the first 2 Hobbits. I didn't really care much for Battle of the Five Armies, but they found a way to make that kind of work through 3 films. With Wicked, let's go into it. Brian, what were your thoughts? We were discussing whether we should have a non-spoiler spoiler discussion, but it's Wicked. If you've seen The Wizard of Oz, you kind of know the story to a point. So we're not really going to hide going through spoiler on this stuff. But we're not going to not that there's really something outright blatant that's like, oh, I didn't know this. How dare you guys spoil this? If you guys have seen The Wizard of Oz, but I think every movie person who would be watching us has probably seen The Wizard of Oz. We're not really spoiling anything by going through this film. So
there's only one kind of spoiler I can think of. It has nothing to do with the story. So I might talk about it, might not.
Part of me is thinking, I knowing how we think, I think I know exactly what you're thinking, and I wasn't going to bring it up either.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So my feelings on this, when I found out they were breaking into 2 movies, I kind of thought it feels like a cash grab, just like we want to make 2 movies instead of 1. And like, because I know they don't want to have to cut things out of the show, and it does take more in a movie. You have to have more scenes in between and set up things like that. So it's going to be longer, but I still felt like they could have made it 1 movie. After seeing this, I really do feel like they probably could have told it in 1 movie, mostly because I feel like there are parts of this. There are songs they should have cut, honestly. I think that there are songs that I really, really enjoy. There are some great songs in there. And there's a whole lot of forgettable ones too. So it's like, I feel like there's things they could have cut out to then condense this into 1 story. Now, not having seen part 2. And like I said, I have not seen the show. I don't know the entire show. I haven't seen part 2. I've heard some of the songs from it. So I don't know how much more time that would need to tell that story. But this one it feels like half a story. It feels like part 1. There are people that are just like, oh no, they make this one still feel like a complete story, so you don't need to see part 2 it doesn't feel unsatisfying. To me, it did. This didn't feel like a complete story to me, and that kind of colored my opinion of it a little bit. That wasn't going to sink the whole movie for me, but I did kind of have that feeling walking away. But this movie as itself, like I said, I think the songs are hit and miss, and in a musical, that's kind of difficult to overcome. I have no problem with performances. I think both Cynthia and Ariana did spectacular jobs. I think both in their acting and their singing, they're great. The production, value with the sets and the costumes and things like that, it all feels a little plastic artificial, like you're on a set, but then again, you're in Oz. You're not gonna be able to make Oz feel real. It's gonna feel like that. So, it was very creative, it was colorful, and I think the choreography with the dancing, John M. Chu again does a great job with that. Although here's my main problem with the movie. It has nothing to do with this movie. It has to do with the fact that John M. Chu made In the Heights. And In the Heights was so overlooked by audiences and by critics and by awards bodies and all these people. And that has great songs. It has great choreography. It's everything about that movie, the direction, everything that I love. And everyone's praising this movie. And this isn't fair to this movie. I know this.
I was gonna say, like, this is not a fair. This is not fair.
This movie. I'm telling you my opinion. How this is coloring my review.
I got you.
Is that people are raving about this movie that I think is good, but it definitely has things that could have been better, and its flaws. And it's like, why weren't you guys talking like this about the one that deserved it? That's my very general thoughts. I'll let you talk, and then we'll get into specifics.
Let me get the In the Heights part out of the way since you brought it up. I feel like In the Heights, the reason why people didn't really pay much attention to it is, one, most of the cast in that were Hamilton, and Hamilton had just like Disney Plus. Hamilton had like just come out, so it had the Hamilton buzz. But Anthony Ramos was not a big name. Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's got a very, very small part. Melissa Barrera was a no name. Most of the big people in that film were not people that was going to drive people to go see it. Plus, it also got same day released on Max. But that doesn't side the fact that In the Heights is fucking amazing and one of my favorite musicals of all time. Except for that 5-10 minute scene that you and I always skip whenever we watch the movie, the Oscar bait scene. But I don't want to basically put that up against Wicked. They're two different things. But right. So for me, what's weird is I felt like going into this when we were going to do this review before we saw the movies, I'm going to be the one that's like on everything, and Brian was going to be the one praising the shit out of this, and it's reversed because Brian is like the
Oh, I'm absolutely the minority on this. Everyone else is loving it, and I feel like I want to love it, and I feel like I want to go see it again to maybe in a different mindset check it out. But it's just like I feel like I'm not going to love this as much as I wanted to, and it's weird because everyone else is, and I'm like, what is it that's not hitting me? I don't know.
And I loved it. I did. I loved it. And most of the stuff, I do have nitpicks, and I'll get to them. But most of the stuff that I normally would be like, what the fuck? Is like, this is part one. The things that I have issues with, it might get fleshed out in part two. So I can't really judge these issues. I wanted more of Fierro as Jonathan Bailey, who I never watched Bridgerton, guys. So this is the first time for me watching this guy. I thought this guy was fucking great. I love Jonathan Bailey
because he was almost kind of like this, almost like a Gaston type character, but he wasn't a villain. He wasn't a bad guy.
No, exactly. And I wanted more of him. And
yeah, his song is the one I expected to be like not caring what's about, and it might be the one song I like the most in this movie.
Dancing, I think it's Dancing Through Life. I love the choreography. I love the stage presence of it. He comes in as like, was it Prince of Oz or some shit? He's like the bad boy, like kind of thing. But I loved his performance. I loved his character. I loved his charisma throughout the film. And I kept saying, I was like, I want more of him. But I was like, well, I know he's not the focal point, but maybe like that would be, if this movie was just this movie and this was it, I'd be like, there wasn't enough of him. I want more of him. But you know what? I might get more of him in part two. So I can't really knock this movie because we're following a Broadway musical and maybe the rest of his part's going to be in the second film. Same thing with, was it Bach? The Munchkinland guy, the one who Bach, whatever. Really liked Ethan Slater as him. Wanted a little bit more out of him, but once again, we might get more of him in the sequel. So a lot of the stuff that I really did like this cast, and I didn't get enough. I felt
that way about Jeff Goldblum because I love Jeff Goldblum in that role, but it's like he has that one song. I'm like, oh, this is Jeff Goldblum's song. and it was one of the most underwhelming songs in the movie. I'm like, oh, come on, give him something better than this. And so
Yeah,
I'm hoping that he has something more in part 2.
now we could watch part 2 next year and resurface this, and I'll either feel stronger or weaker based off of how part 2 plays out from this. Because there's a lot of things that I'm like, I wish there was more of this, or I wish there was more of this. I wish there was more time with this. But it's once again, it's a part 1, and I might get what I want out of part 2. So I can't really knock this film for that, because once again, they're following the Broadway. And I'm a little more lenient when it comes to this or books, when it's like, I can't blame the script for the movie. It's following this template of the book or the Broadway. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing based off of this. And that is something that could get fixed down the road. But as of right now, I can't use that as a knock. Also, can nitpick here. Here's my first nitpick. None of the Munchkins are Munchkins in this movie. Did you notice that they're all like normal height? Like all the Munchkins are the same height as Glinda in the first scene. And then even Bach, he's like, what, 3 inches smaller than Fiyero, who's a tall motherfucker. Like when he steps on the books, I'm like, he's the same height as Fiyero. I was like, you're not a Munchkin, dude. You just got a short man complex.
You're just a slightly shorter man. Yes.
Exactly. It's like, so are none of the Munchkins Munchkins? Because I'm sorry.
Honestly, I think it's become one of those things of like, modern day, political correctness that they can't do. Like they were talked about in the upcoming Snow White live action movie. They weren't going to use real dwarfs in that because they thought that'd be like,
we're allowed to have jobs in Hollywood too, motherfuckers. Peter Dinklage, motherfucker. Come on. Give them jobs. They're allowed to have jobs. Fuck the Lollipop Guild. We're not going to get the Lollipop Guild? What the fuck, guys? None of these people are Munchkins. They're not.
The Munchkins is now just a group of people that maybe is slightly shorter than everyone else.
Yeah, it's a town name now.
Yeah.
Not that's just that irked me. Because like none of these people are Munchkins. Why are we treating them like they're like super short?
But I really like
they got a Napoleon complex basically in this film, and they're not even that short. But so that was a little bit picked to bother me. The very, very first scene, the musical, the first musical, which was it No Mourning the Wicked or something? Yeah. The one thing I was worried about with Ariana Grande is that she always tries to sing operatic, and in the first song, she does that, and I'm like, I can't understand a goddamn thing she's singing, and and Kimberly and I were in agreement. Like, I wish we had subtitles. Because there's a lot of songs in here that I could not understand what they're saying. It gets better as it goes on. But that very, very first song was like, I have no.
Yeah, I hated it. And again, somewhere later in the movie, she did the same thing. She was doing that operatic high singing.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really hate this. But I mean, now I believe that is from the original songs, so I can't blame her for that. But I was just going, please don't lean into this later in the movie, because like you said, it starts out that way. You're like, oh no.
that was my initial thought was, oh shit, this is gonna be rough if this is the way it's gonna be the whole way through with her, because this is the one worry I had, because every time I listened to her sing before this, I was like, she just sounds like someone who's trying to do Mariah Carey, and I don't like that. But she gets better, guys. I think Ariana Grande is actually fantastic in this film. Her comedic timing, her comedic movements with everything, I thought worked so fucking well in this movie. Cynthia Erivo is a fucking dynamo in this film. I thought she was fucking amazing. And her performances throughout the whole film, I got misty. I actually got teary-eyed in on that one scene in the middle of the film. I think you know the scene I'm talking about, in the club. Not 50 Cent, but you know what I'm talking about. But that was such a powerful scene. And even at the end, during Defying Gravity, I got emotional during that. Why? Because Cynthia Erivo does such a fucking great job with her performance and just resonating through Elphaba, through this whole film. And I think those two are stellar, and they deserve all the recognition that they're hopefully going to be getting come awards season. Jeff Goldblum, I agree. Jeff Goldblum is basically playing Jeff Goldblum, which is not a bad thing because he's Oz.
He's the Grandmaster again. Yeah,
exactly. Jeff Goldblum is that's one character that he's like, you basically are playing your real life version, but that fits perfectly for what this is. So I can't get mad at you for that. Michelle Yeoh, I think, is great in this as well. Once again, would have loved more of her, but once again, maybe in the second film we will. Like I said, Ethan Slater as Bach, I love. Marissa Bode as Nessa Rose. I think she was solid in the parts we got. Peter Dinklage, once again, I really wanted a little bit more of what happened with him after we got to a certain
I have
point.
to assume there's more on that sub.
Exactly. It's like that is the crux of where Elphaba's character is going. So we got to get more of that in part 2. Bowen Yang and Browen James, I thought they were good as like the mean girl bitches. I thought they were funny for what they were. I love the cast. I think visually it looks great. And a lot of these sets were built. It wasn't a green screen the movie. The choreography for the dance sequences were great. Yes, are there songs that probably should have just been spoken as dialogue and not sung? Sure. Because there's a lot of times where there was moments where I'm like, did we have to sing that? Or could we have just talked?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind, and there's like the one scene that happened for me was Elphaba going off singing by herself. I want to think it's "I'm Not That Girl." I think it's her solo song, and she's like just going off in the woods and singing to herself. And I'm just like,
are you talking about The Wizard and I?
Exactly the kind of thing that could be cut for me.
Oh, I'm Not That Girl. Okay, I know the song you're talking about. Yeah. After the cup, the animal CGI not the greatest. It's not bad, but we've seen it so much better before. So maybe the budget just wasn't there to make them look as good as they could have been. But at the end of the day, the songs, the standout songs were amazing. The performances, amazing. I was enthralled through this whole film. I enjoyed it immensely. And now I cannot wait to see what they do with part 2. It is now going to be up there with my most anticipated. And I didn't expect that. So is it better than In the Heights? No. But I'm not gonna use that as an argument though. But yeah, I fully figured before seeing this movie that Brian was gonna be me and I was gonna be Brian going into this. But yeah, I loved Wicked. I thought it was great, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the second one. And I actually do feel that this first film was very definitive one movie. We got a beginning, we got a middle, we got an end that goes into a cliffhanger, and let's see what happens going into the next film. So I do feel this movie did have a definitive ending to it, much like the Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings movies did. Granted, there was no big ass battle, but we did have a very definitive hot spot moment, and then the movie ends. So I actually think it did stand on its own 2 feet as a film. What did you end up giving it as your score?
Well, when I first saw it, I came out, and like I said, I enjoyed it, enjoyed the performances, enjoyed a lot of things about it, but there was this disappointment in me, and I think that had to do with expectations. And so my first initial knee-jerk rating was a 3-star. I have since upped that to 3.5 stars.
So
and it could go up on rewatches. Like I said, I need to give this another watch, but we'll see.
You're in my Tropic Thunder phase, where I had such high expectations for it. It didn't reach it. And it was like, ugh, 3-star. And then I watched it like 6 months later. I was like, this is actually amazing. and I love Tropic Thunder now. I'm not saying that's going to happen to you, but you had this movie as one of your most anticipated, and it just didn't match what you were looking for. So right now you're kind of in that middling phase. And it could very well change because you'll rewatch this before part 2 comes out. Like I said, for me, loved everything about it.
Honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm probably gonna I gotta take my mom to see it, so I'll be watching it again here eventually. But yeah, like I said, love the performances, love the songs. Some songs that weren't needed, but the songs that were meant to be there fucking slapped. I think visually everything looked great. I have a lot more respect for Ariana Grande now as a performer after this. For me, 4.5 stars. It's one of my top rated films of the year. And I cannot wait to see what we get with part 2. It is next year, right? They're not doing like a 2-year break. It is next year.
It's like the same weekend next year, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I can't wait to see what we do with the next year. We hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you get to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, the other big film that came out this weekend, Gladiator 2, another big film that's been high on our anticipated list throughout the year. We will probably be doing a non-spoiler and spoiler discussion of that. So we will be delving deep into Gladiator 2. Next week, we've got Moana 2. Very, very busy week for me, and I'm assuming Brian, so I do not know if Moana 2 is going to get watched next week, at least by me. So we may have a review, we may not. I'm also not super excited for Moana 2 either. Are you? I didn't think you were either.
No, my year is pretty much done. There's nothing really I'm that excited about, honestly.
There's a few.
There's a couple I'm going to see, but nothing I'm really anticipating.
There's probably still about a good 4 or 5 films that I actually really want to see. I don't know if they're gonna crack my top 10 like Wicked did, but we still got Nosferatu, Kraven the Hunter. I'm excited for Sonic 3 because Keanu Reeves.
There's Kraven.
Yeah, there's Kraven. And there's a couple others still to come. So we'll see what we got for the rest of the year before we come out with our end of year best and worst list. But stay tuned for Gladiator 2. I'm Sean Waskrew. That is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.